Hello, and thanks for coming to the Institute of Future Technology. On behalf of Dr. Emmett Brown, Institute founder and Chief Inventive Officer, we hope that you...
One more thing. When I send you a day into the future, if you should happen to see yourself still standing in line, don't say hi to yourself. Trust me on that one.
Greetings. We've been expecting you. I hope you've had an exciting journey. I'm Terry Farrell, and I play the character of Jadzia Dax on Star Trek Deep Space Nine. I'll be your personal tour guide for an exclusive behind-the-scenes look at the making of this very special television series. To borrow a familiar phrase from Star Trek lore, we're going to journey where none have gone before. Like the original series, the feature films, and The Next Generation, Star Trek Deep Space Nine is based on Gene Roddenberry's unique vision of the future, a popular legend that has endured for over a quarter of a century. From roots of that historic legacy come the adventures of a new set of diverse characters who continue to encounter new civilizations and explore the ever-changing human. To give you a better idea of how this series originated, let's talk to the creators of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Rick Berman and Michael Piller. Yes, first thing.
How about the intensity grid?
It's fine. We've got a lot to show you in a short time, so let's start by visiting some of the familiar areas you might have seen on our program and talk with some of its cast members. Oh, and along the way, I'll be testing your knowledge of Star Trek history with a few fun-filled questions from the Final Frontier. For instance, do you know how many docking ports there are here on the station? The answer? 6 on the pylons and 12 on the outer rim for a total of 18. This is where I shot my very first scene after being cast on the show. And I have to tell you, I was a nervous wreck. I mean, imagine watching Star Trek as a child on television and suddenly finding out you're going to be part of this legend. It's a thrilling experience. And in the beginning, I think it took me about 4 months to finally settle down and relax. This is the heart of the space station, which we call OPS, or Operation Control Center. You might call OPS the nerve center, or the central hub of activity containing all primary functions that keep this place running smoothly. As you might guess, OPS can get real busy, especially if there's a crisis, and Deep Space Nine is constantly plagued with technical problems. A crisis occurs here about once a week. That's when we usually call on our friend and colleague, Miles O'Brien. Now, imagine you've just spent the day in a runabout dodging a nasty meteor shower. Then you have a run-in with a Klingon who's got a major attitude problem. And now you just want to take off your comm badge and unwind. Where do you go? Well, look no further than Quark's bar. Well, it first occurred in the first season of Star Trek The Next Generation, when he was cast as one of the very first Ferengi fortune hunters. If anyone's worried about finding their favorite shopping mall in outer space, have no fear. Quark's Bar is just one section of the Promenade, a huge futuristic flea market and amusement center. It's got everything you need, from gift shops to restaurants and beyond. Promenade, as big as the one on DS9, can't be run without some major league security. And whenever there's trouble, the crew calls on Odo. Along with Odo, another important character who helps keep the peace is Major Kira Nerys, the first officer of the station. She's a strong-willed patriot from the neighboring planet of Bajor who fights for what she believes in. Kira's people, the Bajorans, are one of 2 alien cultures that play a frequent role on Deep Space Nine. Their arch-enemies are the evil Cardassians, who fans might remember from the initial appearances on Star Trek The Next Generation. They represent a constant threat to the safety of the station and its people. We've already shown you how the Promenade of the future and the ones on our planet are similar in many ways. But there's another similarity we can all relate to. They're the ideal hangouts for kids and teenagers. This is where you'll often find Commander Sisko's son, Jake. Deep Space Nine also comes complete with a high-tech medical facility and an infirmary to care for any kind of alien who might come through the wormhole. To help administer first aid in the Final Frontier, sometimes Dr. Bashir can be a bit too eager in his passionate endeavors, especially when he works with Science Officer Dax, the character I play on the series.
Julian, you are a wonderful friend. I enjoy the time we spend together.
Stop. You're driving a stake through my heart.
Try a high-pitched sonic shower. It'll make you feel better.
No, it won't. I've already tried it. That ever walked the earth.
We all have fantasies and dreams we keep to ourselves. Thoughts that should remain private.
I'm glad you understand.
Of course I do. I was a young man. Once.
If only Dr. Bashir had a little more respect for his elders, he might get along better with Dax. You see, my character's a Trill, a life form that is over 300 years old. The Trill race were worms that lived underground, along with humanoid bodies that lived above them. However, because of an environmental disaster, the two became dependent on each other. Now she's a joined species comprised of two separate entities, one human, the other a worm-like creature living inside her.
I forgot how different it was.
How different what was?
Being female. I haven't been one for over 80 years. All this attention.
Imagine it must take some getting used to.
Actually, I find it quite enjoyable.
In the pilot episode, there's a scene showing her latest transformation. The elderly gentleman in this scene was Benjamin Sisko's former mentor. In fact, Sisko often refers to Dax as old man. While Dax may appear as a young woman, she possesses the wisdom and the knowledge that comes from 6 lifetimes of experience.
Julian, Trills do not look for romance the same way humans do. In fact, we find it quite a nuisance.
What, a nuisance?
It's a weakness of the young, and although a Trill host may have these feelings occasionally, it is our wish to live in a higher plane, to try to rise above these kinds of temptations.
What, you said try to rise above, which suggests you don't always succeed.
Julian.
Okay, it's quiz time again. A member of the Trill race was first introduced on an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. In addition to the characters and locales we've just seen, each new episode of Deep Space Nine offers the opportunity to explore new worlds and civilizations. Plus, the door is wide open for other familiar characters from the legend of Star Trek to visit this outpost. Let's see how many you can recognize in this next sequence. Well, now that we've introduced you to the world of Deep Space Nine, let's see how this television series is put together from beginning to end. To produce just one episode of this series, so where does it all start? Well, it begins right here, with an idea for a story. With a budget for each episode equal to that of a small feature film, the task of mounting DS9 is enormous. Before a single frame is shot, several departments pool their resources together, weeks in advance, to determine what requirements are needed. The man responsible for creating many of the original sets you see around here has a long track record with Star Trek, from the feature films to The Next Generation. Exterior, space, the wormhole as it explodes into view, an incredible sight. The tiny runabout leads out the huge Cardassian warship. That incredible sight I just read to you is from the pilot episode of Deep Space Nine. And it's typical of the scenes found in almost every one of our scripts. All right, put your thinking caps on, because I've got a brain teaser for you. In the last sequence, you may have noticed 3 new shuttlecrafts called runabouts docked at the space station. One of the more demanding challenges the production team faced was creating the initial space station models utilized in every episode. For the makeup crew on Deep Space Nine, that can mean hours and hours of work. And that's not including our regular cast members, Quark, Odo, Kira, and myself. Let's investigate how long this process takes. In the preliminary stages of a character's development, several makeup designs are tried out before the cameras. As you can see in these early screen tests, my character of Dax endured a few dramatic changes before we arrived on the leopard spot pattern that she now has. Sound is another crucial element in bringing this make-believe world of the future to life. To give you an idea of how much impact sound can make, let's look at a scene from Deep Space Nine with only the dialogue left in. Now let's look at the finished scene with all the sound mixed together. Quite a difference, isn't there? Sound effects and added dialogue are edited into a show in many ways. They can be designed by mixing computer effects together. With each version of Star Trek, whether it be the original series, the motion pictures, or the current series, comes a whole new library of special sound effects. Each are distinctly different from each other. Let's use one distinct sound effect we all know as an example. When Captain Kirk told Scotty, "Beam me up," we heard this. Then they modified it for Next Generation's version. And on Deep Space Nine, the Cardassian transporter has its own sound. Oftentimes, scenes that have already been filmed require special video effects. For instance, One of the most unique visual effects used on Deep Space Nine is Odo's metamorphosis into a gelatinous liquid. Once the episode has been edited and scored with music, it must meet the producer's final approval. Once that's done, the show is mass duplicated and either shipped or satellited across the country to TV stations. Advertising materials are also sent along to promote that week's episode, and announcements appear in magazines and local newspapers. I want to reveal all the secrets of how our series is made, but I hope you realize it requires a lot of hard work, and maintaining the high level of quality on this show is very important to everyone here at Deep Space Nine.
Proton counts have tripled. Sensors aren't operating.
We'll have to cut this visit shorter than I expected. This place is always facing some sort of emergency. Well, we better head back towards the ship that brought you here.
Excuse me, Miss Farrell, you're needed in makeup.
I'm sorry, folks. I guess you'll have to find the way back home by yourselves. Have a safe trip, and don't forget to buckle your seatbelts.